First, let's start on an update on Laramie. And so he did injure his tricep. He is going to get surgery. And it's always tough to, talk about a player missing time, and especially a great player like LT. Not only is he an unbelievable player, like he is a absolutely fantastic teammate. And he'll be missed, and we can't wait to get him back. When these tough scenarios come up, it does provide some opportunities, and Brandon Coleman will shift back out to left tackle. He's played a lot of winning football at left tackle here, and we know that he's ready for it. He's put in an excellent offseason, and the team is very confident in him.
Dan Quinn, just moments ago before practice began, here on a Monday. Practice today, practice tomorrow, and then a joint practice with the Dolphins on Wednesday. There's a way, if you try really, really hard to convince yourself that losing Laramie Tunsil to a tricep injury that will likely cost him most of, if not the entire season, isn't the worst thing to happen to the team. And obviously losing the quarterback would be worse. But don't try too hard to convince yourself that all will be fine. They traded for him last year, and they paid him the highest average annual at the position in league history because they thought it was an investment they had to make. Good morning, everybody. Max is with me. Ben will jump on a little bit later on in the show. After practice is concluded, we'll probably hear from a few of the players afterwards. You'll hear more from Dan Quinn here on the show. But this was devastating, what happened on Saturday, the team losing Laramie Tunsil to a tricep injury in practice. It's part of the NFL. It happens all the time. I went through all of the injuries so far in preseason. This is by far the worst injury that any team has suffered so far here early in training camp. I mean, we have had just one NFL preseason game, and the starters didn't play in it. The starters will compete in the joint practice on Wednesday with the Dolphins. We have no idea how many of them will play on Friday night in the first preseason game. But this is the first big one, and there will be more between now and opening day. But this is the first big one in the NFL, and it stings. It stings badly. This is very arguably the second best football player on the football team. So your final 53, you only had 3-4 tops, A-level players. Laramie Tunsil was one of them. Now, Brandon Coleman has played the position. Yes, they went to the NFC Championship with Brandon Coleman playing left tackle. He's got 28 starts in the league at left tackle, including a few at the end of last year when they did the smart thing and sat Laramie Tunsil. Remember that conversation? Once they decided to sit Jaden, what was the point of playing any of their valuable players? Well, they didn't really play most of their valuable players the rest of the way, and Laramie Tunsil was one of those that missed. He is going to replace Tunsil at left tackle. Brandon Coleman is. If you recall, he was a third-round pick out of TCU in 2024. He started 15 games as a rookie, including 3 in the postseason at left tackle. But remember, when the season was over, the powers that be, Adam Peters and company, along with the coaching staff, decided we like Brandon, but we don't love Brandon at left tackle. We got to go get ourselves a left tackle. And so they sent multiple picks, 3 picks. It's actually 4, and they got back 1, 3 in net to the Houston Texans for Laramie Tunsil, knowing, by the way, that they would have to pay him in early 2026 a contract commensurate with the best left tackles in the game, which they did. We didn't have to wait for this one because they viewed Laramie Tunsil in this offseason as an A-plus player that they could not be without, and that deserved $30 million a year. Now, the Laramie Tunsil deal isn't the largest for a left tackle in NFL history in terms of the aggregate value of it, but average annual, yes. Man, second straight year that the 2 top average annual salaried left tackles were lost for the season, essentially, in training camp. Last year, Rashawn Slater with the Chargers. This year, Laramie Tunsil in Washington. Remember this, too, about Brandon Coleman. There's versatility. He's a young player. There are things to like about Brandon Coleman, but in addition to them essentially saying, yeah, we made it through 2024 and it was fine. However, we need somebody much better. And then, oh, by the way, we're going to move him inside. And then, oh, by the way, we're going to eventually replace him inside as well. He was battling with Chris Paul for the left guard starting job. That now goes to Chris Paul. Coleman moves to left tackle. Offensive coordinator David Blau has one less A player to work with on offense. Scheme, quarterback play, there are a lot of things that can overcome an average to less than average offensive line. But when you have one of the best at one of the most important positions, there's really no way to minimize it or to fabricate in your mind all will be well. All might end up being well. This is not a death sentence for the team. It's not a death sentence for the offense. But the upside offensively in terms of their offensive line, both running the football and protecting the quarterback, is less than it was before Saturday. What about other players that are out there? Well, double-digit year starter Taylor Decker is available. He was a teammate of David Blau's when David Blau was in Detroit. But it certainly would appear, based on what Quinn said, Ben had the reporting yesterday as well. Others did, I'm sure, but that they have made the decision to move Brandon Coleman to left tackle. And keep, by the way, their first-round pick in last year's draft, Josh Connerly Jr., who, by the way, played left tackle at Oregon, but they are going to keep him at right tackle. Look, the simplest thing you would think is, let's not make a bunch of changes losing one player. You could take Connerly, move him to right tackle, or move him to left tackle, have Coleman or someone else like Wiley start at right tackle, and then continue the competition at guard. But what they're doing here is that they're essentially saying, we got somebody that wasn't a guaranteed starter that can start at left tackle that leaves the other four spots essentially intact. Right guard, center, left guard, right tackle. Will Coleman perform at a level that, represents or even comes close to what they were going to have? Probably not. Can you scheme around it? Can the quarterback continue to make great plays to make it not as much of an issue? Yes. Really big blow. God, you know what? GD, it's just continued from last year. It's got to end. You cannot survive an NFL season without having your best players on the field. Last year, Tunsil, for the most part, was the best player that stayed on the field. All of their other best players weren't on the field. Let's hope this isn't the beginning of something. And maybe then we'll need a substation review. All right. Lots happened over the weekend in sports. We'll get to all of that. But this is really right now the topic of the day. And what I would ask all of you is this, and we can open up phone lines at 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. How would you describe the injury to Laramie Tunsil? Devastating, bad, will be okay, all will be fine. We have a replacement. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Add Stephon Diggs last week, replace Laramie Tunsil over the weekend. How would you describe this injury? Devastating, bad, will be okay, or easily overcomable with Brandon Coleman at left tackle? That shouldn't be the answer for anybody. But it will put some more pressure on David Blau to make sure that they scheme up around a player that is less than the player they had. at that position. 301 230 0980. 301 230 0980. Will
So,
you please? Yes.
real quick, Kev, you mentioned substation talk. I decided to pull it up on the map.
There is one, right?
Dominion Energy, less than like maybe a half mile away. So I'm starting to connect some dots.
Mm-hmm. I don't know anything about that. Not, you know what?
Neither
I'm not
do
a
I,
scientist.
but I'm connecting dots anyway.
I'm not a scientist. And I also, at times, don't trust the science. But hit the what do you got for me? So this may not be the WNBA story you're waiting for me to give you. Although that was interesting with Sophie Cunningham being horse-collared around the neck, and somehow they're doing backflips to try to act like she may have been at fault. This league never, ever stops disappointing in terms of how idiotic their leadership is. No, I've got a better, more positive story from the WNBA. The Washington Mystics are rolling. Are you familiar with their incredible win streak right now? 7 straight. They beat Phoenix yesterday 95-75. They've won 7 in a row. In the Eastern Conference standings, okay, I bet you can't name for all the tea in China the Eastern Conference versus Western Conference in the WNBA. No chance you could do that, right? You can't even name all the teams. We did this a few weeks ago. The Mystics have won 7 games in a row, the longest win streak in the WNBA. They now have the second best record in the Eastern Conference, a half game behind the Indiana Fever, who have the best record in the Eastern Conference. They have the 5th best record in the WNBA currently at 19-12. They are solidly in the playoffs right now. They don't ask me how they're doing it. I just was sent a note this morning saying you got to give the Mystics some love. I'm giving them some love. Shakira Austin had 19 and 11. Sonia Citron also had 19 in the 20-point win over Phoenix. They came from 20 down last week to win a game against Dallas. They were down 20 in the second half, came back and won the game against Dallas. The Mystics, 7 in a row, climbing the WNBA standings. As pretty much every piece of news about the WNBA is everything but about the basketball in the WNBA. Although I did see that the Minnesota guard, Kayla McBride, Irish last name was McBride, I believe, had 43 in a game yesterday, making a WNBA record 10 threes. That's the most ever made in a WNBA game. 10 threes she had. She was 10, yes, Kayla McBride, 10 of 14 from behind the arc, a career high, 43 points in Minnesota's win yesterday over the Dallas Wings. I'll tell you what, 43 points in a 40-minute game is a lot of points. Good for her. That's my what do you got. Mystics, 7-game on a roll. The Sophie Cunningham stuff, head scratcher. I don't understand this league at all. I don't know what they're trying to do to this league. But somebody smarter and more important and an equity holder in that thing needs to step in and tell the children to leave the room. All right, Laramie Tunsil. Devastating, bad, they'll be okay, or honestly, it's not going to make much of a difference because Brandon Coleman can play the position. 301-230-0980. Phone lines are open. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com.
I think it's the on-field portion like speaks for itself. This is a great player. The off-field portion is also significant, and just because of his connection, with his teammates and how he interacts with them. So, like I said, on and off the field, this is significant for us.
Yeah. It is significant. There's no way to sugarcoat it. They're going to go ahead and play the games anyway. This is part of the NFL. The teams that stay the healthiest tend to perform the best. The teams that end up on the wrong side of the lost player equation usually do the worst. Hopefully this will be it for them for the season. Laramie Tunsil, pretty much done for the year. They haven't ruled him out completely with the tricep injury. Perhaps a 4 to 6 month injury. Maybe he's back in 4 months, which would put it at late November or early December at this point. But that'd be a best case, and obviously you'd have to be in contention for him to return. Brandon Coleman has been selected as the man who will replace him. He's played a lot of games at left tackle. Brandon Coleman has for this football team, and he's played pretty well. But I would just, again, I think that the evaluation by most of us of offensive line play is not what we do our best at. And the fact that they decided after he started all of those games and played, we thought, pretty well in 2024 to go out and trade 4 picks for Laramie Tunsil when you knew you were going to have to also pay him a massive salary when the 2025 season was over speaks to what they thought of Brandon Coleman. They liked him. They thought they could do a lot better. And let's not forget that Coleman gets moved inside and then loses his job to Chris Paul. I like Brandon Coleman based on what I can tell from the position. I think he does a good job. He's athletic for the position. He's versatile. That versatility really would have played in well as a backup once the real games had begun. You would have rather seen Tunsil go down after 5 or 6 games. Although some would say, no, it's better to get Coleman in for an entire training camp, or the majority of training camp. 301-230-0980. You'll hear more of Quinn throughout the show, as he was asked, obviously, a lot about Tunsil this morning before practice began. Also, Trey Amos got banged up again over the weekend. You'll hear what Quinn said about that. All right, 301-230-0980. This injury, how would you describe it? Devastating? Pretty bad? We should be okay? Or it's not as big of a deal as everybody's making it out to be? 301-230-0980. I would say it's pretty bad at the very least. I mean, you go into a season and you don't have a lot of, at this point, based on what we know, you don't have a lot of star players. You don't have a lot of blue chippers. You don't have a lot of A to A-plus level players. You know your quarterback is capable of being that. You feel like Terry McLaurin is capable of being that. And then Laramie Tunsil is the other one. That's it. That's the list that we know of. Maybe Oway develops into something approaching that. Maybe Sonny Styles develops into an A player. He's never taken a snap before in the NFL. You just lost one of the 3 players that you know are one of your best players. Stinks. It's pretty bad. They certainly can have Brandon Coleman, a guy with experience on the roster, been in camp, been throughout the offseason. David Blau's talents as a coordinator and play caller. Jaden Daniels' ability to make plays under pressure. All of that could play into decent results and maybe even very good results without Tunsil. They didn't have him in 2024. I understand that. 301-230-0980. Let's start with Gary in Upper Marlboro. Gary, what's up? Thanks. Go.
Hey, Kevin, how are you?
I'm fine, Gary.
Yeah, I think it's devastating, Kevin, because of what you gave up for him, all the players, the draft picks. He's 32 years old. He's most likely going to be gone for the entire season. And you do have him for extension for the next 2 years, but this bleeds into next year. and the following year. Every game this guy loses, it impacts the investment that you put in. And so that's sort of beyond this year. And that last year in 28, the junkies corrected me this morning. I didn't know that there was he's signed through 28, but that's a balloon year for his contract. And he's going to be much older. And, Jaden at that point.
Yeah, he's already a 31-year-old. He's already a 31-year-old left tackle. Yes.
Yeah.
Now this is a position that has aged well in a lot of different spots over the years. Obviously, Trent Williams, guys like Jason Peters. There's a long list of left tackles that have played at a high level into their mid and even late 30s. But go ahead.
That's true. That's true. And this type of injury is not one of those injuries that necessarily is going to, hasten his exit out of the league. I think you can make a pretty good recovery. But the problem I have is, I was not a big fan of this deal to begin with because I didn't think Brandon Coleman was an absolute mess all over himself. When we walked off the field in Philadelphia, no one was saying left tackle was a problem. Okay. Everyone was focused on the defense in 24.
You're right about that. We weren't predicting the trade and a big move at left tackle. And by the way, we weren't predicting necessarily the drafting of a right tackle. But they felt like the investment in the protection of their young quarterback started up front, and they needed to get better. That's what they felt. We didn't see it coming. I would agree with that.
Yeah, and I don't think that I think he's a great player, but I was not a fan of it because I thought 24 was a fluke. Okay, and I thought the slow, steady build through the draft was the better way to go. But I think it's devastating for this year because there's no way you win a Super Bowl now. Okay, he is one of the best left tackles in football, and if the Super Bowl was the goal here, you can't win a Super Bowl without your best players. And Brandon Coleman is a decent player, but he's not Laremy Tunsil. And with that, the junkies were talking about, well, they won with him in 24. 24 was a fluke season, not because of the way he played, but overall, it was a fluke season. And I called your show in 24, and I said, they just need to push the delete button on this. They shouldn't go out there and swing through the fences because they're not going to play this tranche of quarterback that they played that year. I mean, that was an unbelievable year. And so I think for this year is devastating because it's not going to be the last injury, of course.
All right.
And
I mean, Marshawn Lattimore was actually the biggest swing and the one that had the most risk to it. Laremy Tunsil wasn't it was a big swing, but it was at a position where I think, you're investing in your quarterback. Look, he played at an outstanding level last year. It just sucks that he's not going to be able to play year two. Thanks for the call, Gary. I would also just remind everybody, you don't have to have an elite level left tackle to win a Super Bowl. If you go to, who are the best left tackles in the game? Trent Williams is a great left tackle, and that's been instrumental in San Francisco's success for sure. Tristan Wirfs in Tampa, Tunsil, both here and in Houston. Penei Sewell, they haven't won a Super Bowl. Who's Seattle's starting left tackle? Is it the kid Cross that they wanted? I think it's Charles Cross, the guy from Mississippi State.
Yep.
It's Charles Cross. He's a good left tackle. He's a very good left tackle. Remember, New England had major issues with their rookie left tackle from LSU throughout the year. He was actually a weakness on that offensive line last year, and they made it to a Super Bowl. So you don't have to have, obviously, the best left tackle in the game to make it to a Super Bowl. But does it help if you've got an outstanding offensive line in general? Yes. Now you've got your starting left tackle. You've got a question at center for sure. And look, they were, as well as we think Chris Paul played last year, they were okay with him leaving and with Brandon Coleman playing at that position for him. Let's go to our guy Anthony in D.C. Anthony, go ahead.
So in the words of Kendrick Lamar, we're going to be all right.
Okay.
It's not like, as you said, it's not like Coleman hasn't done it. We're not bringing up some free agent rookie out of nowhere. And then if you want to bring in a security blanket like Decker, that's fine too. But like you said, we weren't after the 24 season, we weren't talking about left tackle. So Brandon Coleman can more than hold.
But who
hold his
cares
own.
what we're talking about, Anthony? That you agree
No.
with me that is a position where we understand the really good ones. We can see the really good ones and see what Trent Williams is and to a certain extent what a Laramie Tunsil is. But for the most part, it's a very difficult position, even for the astute fan, to evaluate. They know what they're asking them to do, and they know whether or not they're doing it at a high level. The bottom line is we weren't talking about it, but the first thing they did was go out and try to replace Brandon Coleman at left tackle with a much better one, and they felt differently.
Kevin, we get all that, but it's not like it's code red. You feel what I'm saying? It's not like it's
Code red
totally
is
devastating.
Jaden, and by the way, at that point, it's more than code red. We flatlined without him.
Right.
We're not talking, but we are talking about the next level of devastating loss. Like if I had done a call segment last week, let's just say I did the call segment last week. Who after Jaden, because Jaden would have been everybody's number one, can this team ill afford to lose the most? Tunsil would have been near the top of that list.
Yeah, he would have been near the top, but
who would have been in front of him?
So
Terry?
Let's just use this analogy. So we lost Terry last year, and everything went to hell, right? So we're losing Tunsil for possibly the whole year. But Tunsil has a replacement player who can perform.
Yes.
Whereas
he's played before.
Right. And we didn't have any of that with the receivers last year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the difference. If you
I hope you're right. I hope that in this new offense, obviously they made a quick decision on this. And you know what? We will know between now and opening day if the quick decision they made isn't really the decision they wanted to make. Meaning, are they going to go out and bring in somebody else? Are they going to bring in a Taylor Decker? Are they going to bring in another player that gets released at some point? If they do that, you could say, well, it's really more for depth, but we'll see how it plays out. This was not what they wanted. If they had wanted this, they would have never traded for Tunsil in the first place, clearly.
Quick question. Quick
Yep.
question.
What are you going to ask me about EU or RE again?
No.
Okay.
When you watch the WNBA, specifically the Pacers, what is your impression of the game?
Wait, say that again?
When you watch the WNBA,
I don't watch much of it, Anthony. I mean,
specifically the Indiana.
The Fever.
The Fever. I thought you were talking about pace of play. You said Pacers. What do I think of it? I don't know. I don't watch it that closely. I can't give you. What do you want me to say? What are you hoping that I'll say?
I'm not hoping you say anything. I'm just curious. Are you entertained, or, I mean, what are you getting out?
I'm entertained watching Caitlin Clark play. Yes, I like watching. I think she is an absolute baller when it comes to seeing the floor, anticipating the ability. She's the best. She's a great passer for a basketball player. At any level, she's a great passer. I think I actually like watching her pass the ball as much as I like watching her do anything else. But I don't know. It's not my favorite thing to watch. I mean, it just isn't.
You're basically tuning out everything else then. So
I'm not a fan of the WNBA. I'm just fascinated with this incredible opportunity that the league got for the first time in 27 years and the way they're trying to sabotage it. I don't understand that at all. Doesn't make any sense to me. It's really petty and small, and I don't know why the Adam Silvers and the owners in the NBA that have a great stake haven't told the children to leave the room so that they can ensure that this thing makes money. This thing lost money, as you know, Anthony, hand over fist for 27 years and needed the NBA to write a check at the end of every year just to keep it, to have it come back the following year. And now they're finally making money. And now some would say publicity, good or bad, is better than no publicity. There is an aspect of that that does make sense. And some of this other drama is bringing new eyeballs to the league. That's not necessarily the biggest issue I have. The issue that I have is that there seems to be a vendetta to a certain degree against the Golden Goose, the one person that literally allowed this league to be put into a position to make money. I mean, we're talking about an incremental revenue and profitability jump of like 5x. And I don't understand why you wouldn't embrace that at every turn. I still can't believe she wasn't on that Olympic team. That's one of the dumbest things I have ever seen ever. The amount of revenue and the amount of attention that would have brought to women's basketball. But she wasn't apparently one of the best 18 players or whatever it was. You like it, right?
I get it. Well, I can tolerate it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not the highest level of basketball, but there is some entertainment value to it, and I basically support everything DC. So I said, I keep in touch with the Mystics to see what's going on. So yeah, I can on a Sunday afternoon or a Tuesday night when nothing's going on and I've seen all the shows that I want to watch. Yeah, I'll tune in and watch the WNBA.
There's a lot of new ones out there, Anthony. By the way, you just said something, and I had a conversation with somebody maybe a couple of weeks about this. I don't have an issue with anybody that enjoys it. Look, I enjoy college basketball. It's nowhere near the quality of the NBA in terms of talent, etc. But I enjoy it, just like the WNBA is hardly the best basketball product you'll ever see. I mean, you can go to high school games in our area and see a much higher quality level of basketball and ability. But it doesn't matter if you enjoy it. College basketball is like, the freshman team compared to the varsity. But I love it. I love the pageantry around it. I love the rivalries, the intensity. The coaching, I think, matters as much, if not maybe a little bit more, at the college and high school levels. So I love that part of both college and high school basketball. But yeah, I get it. Like, my father loves the WNBA, loves women's college basketball. He watches every single Maryland women's game and says, "Did you see what Brenda did last night?" "No, Pop, I didn't watch." "Well, you're missing it. She can her staff is," and he's telling me about all the players. He doesn't care that it's not, men's quality or WNBA or NBA quality. He just likes the overall product. And look, they can play, man. They can definitely play for what they, in that environment. She's a phenomenal passer, Anthony. One of the best passers in terms of just vision, feel, anticipation. She's just all around great. I know she can't guard anybody, I guess. But anyway,
I get it. But she's not the only one in the league. Look.
I know. I like that Asia Wilson. Every time she's on, I'll watch her. I like her.
Pay attention to Olivia Miles.
Yeah. All right. Olivia Miles. Okay. New name. All right. Thank you, Anthony. That was a long call with Anthony. I like Anthony a lot, though. It's probably way up there on the list. Anthony and I have pretty much, I guarantee you, if Anthony and I could sit down and have a beer or 7, and we'd be able to go through everything we've rooted for in our lives, and it would probably mirror each other. Exactly. All right, DC, Aveen, Billy, Jamal, Samaj, Ronnie, stay on hold. We'll take more calls on this. Describe how you feel about the Laramie Tunsil injury. Devastating, pretty bad, we should be okay, or it's really not a huge deal. 4 options there. They're sort of close, but gave you 4 options for that. I need an answer and a reason why. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Don't forget, all of our training camp Washington coverage on Team 980 is presented by Xfinity. Score the most reliable Wi-Fi, one price, 5 years guaranteed. Xfinity, imagine that. Just to remind everybody, in that top 10 ranking of tackles, left tackles, Tunsil was 5. He was the highest ranked Washington player. In fact, he was the only top 10 player on the ESPN list. The Jeremy Fowler initiated survey with 70 general managers, assistant general managers, coaches, scouts, etc. He was the only player in a top 10 at a position. Now, Jaden technically tied for 10th with, I think it was Sam Darnold and Caleb Williams, but they gave it to Williams on the tiebreaker, and Tunsil was 5th. So the question at 301-230-0980, and you'll hear more Dan Quinn about what he said. Ben will jump on with us at 12. But describe this injury. And we've got our Team 980 Waldorf Honda poll up on Twitter. Devastating, pretty bad, will be okay. Not as bad as you think. I would probably go pretty bad. Look, devastating is the loss of a quarterback. Devastating is a loss of, a receiver if he's the only receiver you have. Devastating would be the loss of a pass rusher if he's the only one you have. Devastating also can be the loss of a left tackle. I'm close to devastating. I'm close. I think the only reason I'm not going with devastating is that they have a player that has played the position for them and has been a part of this team now since, David Blau took over. But I'm not super confident in Brandon Coleman. And it's not because of my evaluation. Okay, I'm not about to give you maybe what some others will give you, which is a breakdown of Brandon Coleman's pass blocking technique versus Laramie Tunsil's. Okay, but they told you what they thought of Brandon Coleman a year ago when they traded for Laramie Tunsil after Coleman started 15 games as a rookie at left tackle. And as we talked about with a couple of callers, we didn't see that coming, but they know. They know what they needed to do. And then he wasn't the starting guard for the significant majority of the season last year at left guard once he moved inside. I think he's athletic. I think he's versatile, apparently smart. There is a lot to like about Brandon Coleman. And if they didn't have Laramie Tunsil, we'd be talking ourselves into Brandon Coleman being okay, and we'd be more focused on center and Nick Allegretti. But now we've got 2 of the 5 positions as question marks. Waldorf Honda poll of the day. I'll retweet it from Kevin Sheehan, DC. It's also at Team 980. And our Waldorf Honda poll of the day is always a click away at waldorfhonda.com. All right, let's go to Ronnie. Ronnie, go ahead.
You got me, Kev?
I got you, Ronnie.
Hey, good morning. I've been listening to the show a lot lately. I have a shattered wrist, so I've been home from work and listening to a lot. Great shows. Love them. Keep it up. Yeah, chasing a 4-year-old at 50 is no fun. No, I digress. At first, I was like, Saturday when I found out, I was like, what the F? But thinking about it now and with having Coleman in there, I think we'll be okay. I'm panicking, but I think we'll be all right. He did okay his rookie year, but I think we'll be okay. I don't want to, like you said, if it was Jaden, I'd be devastated. But this, I think we can get around this. I know it sucks. It's always us.
If it were Jaden, literally, it's like I'd be devastated for so many reasons, many of them professional reasons. But that obviously nothing can compare to something like that. But like I said earlier, if we had done this segment that's on my list of call segments to do between now and the season opener, and I just hadn't gotten to it yet, and that is after Jaden, who's the player that we could ill afford to lose the most, Tunsil would have been the answer for a lot of you. Tunsil or Terry would have been the answer for a lot of you.
Absolutely. And one more thing, Ken. I agree with you 100% on the WNBA. I don't understand what they're doing there, and I agree with you 110%. This kid's their golden ticket, their golden child, and I don't understand. The kid's good.
Well, not only that, now Sophie Cunningham's drawing an unbelievable amount of attention, social media and otherwise. I mean, what happened the other day? I read some stuff over the weekend. People are doing backflips to try to somehow say that she initiated what happened to her.
No, I saw it too. No,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
Yeah,
Absolutely
I mean,
not.
come on. Yeah, we
Thanks,
sometimes people, the truth will do. All right, thanks for the call, Ronnie. Aveen, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin. I can't not describe it as devastating personally, but, based on the criteria you've given, it's not at the level of losing Jaden Daniels. And I still think we're better weathered than most teams to handle it. This was the one position group on our roster where we actually had good depth. And, Coleman's a young guy with experience and upside who has experience, like a lot of experience, so one full season as a starter playing left tackle. So I think we can better weather it than, a lot of other teams who lose their starting left tackle. And, you were going through it with New England and teams like that. A lot of teams have had good offenses that have had tackle issues, Green Bay, Dallas.
The Packers for a few years had some issues, yeah, especially with injuries, Bakhtiari, et cetera, yes.
Right. And I give this staff like the benefit of the doubt based on what they were able to do in 2024. They were able to get a top 5 offense with
it's a different staff.
Offensive line.
It's a different offensive staff.
Right.
Yeah.
One guy promoted, but it is very much the same as it was in 2024.
Well, Tavita Pritchard's gone. Cliff Kingsbury's gone.
Right.
The top people offensively are different, but yeah, there's still some consistency there with the rest of the offensive staff, including a former head coach, obviously.
Right. So I think, the scheme changes, heavier personnel, more play action, more deception will help. Jaden's probably going to have to make more off-schedule plays. But, Kevin, I'll say, what you're talking about, how they feel about Coleman, I'll ask you, was it more that, they weren't totally convinced on Coleman, or was it just that they saw the chance to get, a blue chip elite player at an elite value, at a good value, and they just had to jump at that,
Yeah, I think that's possible. I would just suggest that typically it's it's not the way Howie Roseman's done business in Philadelphia, but typically when you have the kind of season they had in 2024, led by the offensive side of the ball by far. I mean, they were the responsible party for 12-5 and 2 road playoff wins. And, they had a rookie step in and play left tackle for 15 games, including in 3 playoff games. And he did a really good job. Typically, you're like, wow, we drafted in the 3rd round our starting left tackle for years to come. And it's possible that they just saw an opportunity because Houston, for whatever reason, was making Laramie Tunsil available, and they decided to pounce on that opportunity. But it's an unusual move given the results that they had in 2024. So they must have thought, I think, that they could do a lot better, and maybe they got away with something, Aveen, in 2024 with Coleman at the position. That's the way I would see it. And maybe also that they just viewed Coleman much more as an inside player, as a guard.
Right. You're probably right about that. I viewed that offseason in 2025 as, they were trying to emulate the Eagles. They were saying, let's just get as many, talented offensive linemen as we can. We have Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels will elevate the skill position players. All we need to get him is like a really good offensive line, and we're good. So that's how I viewed that offseason and their decision-making with, Tunsil and Coleman. And, Kevin, I'll just end by saying the only thing that gives me pause is pretty much everybody on this offensive line, except Cosby, is, like, super inexperienced. Everybody pretty much just has 1 year experience as a starter. So that's the only thing that would give me pause, that would make me question why they aren't looking at veterans, but that's the only thing.
Yeah. Look, you said something that I want to just add to. At the end of 2024, the loss in the NFC Championship game, even though they won against the Eagles on that late December 20th game in Landover when they were down a bunch, and they came back anyway against Philadelphia's defense, which, by the way, at that moment had become the best defense in the NFL. one of the things that was very apparent in that NFC Championship game is that they just needed to be able to match the size and the physicality and the strength of Philadelphia's interior players on offense and defense. They needed to get bigger, better, and stronger in the trenches. And that's why they went out and got Tunsil. That's why they drafted Connerly. But Coleman's a big dude. Let's not forget he's more athletic than maybe a Chris Paul, but he's not like a smaller offensive lineman at 6'6", 330 or whatever he is, right? He's every bit of 6'5", 330, 335, something like that. I mean, there's not that much of a difference size-wise between him and Tunsil. Coleman is 6'6", 320. Tunsil, 6'5", 315. All right. So, but that was clearly something that they needed to do. I remember Doc doing shows on, we got to get bigger and just stronger and meaner in the trenches, because that's who you're shooting for. You're shooting for the Eagles. And they got Jalen Carter, and they got Jordan Davis. And on offense, they got Jordan Mailata, and they got, Lane Johnson. And they've got just big and bad and physical in the trenches. And so they went for that in Tunsil and in Connerly Jr. Whether or not it will work out with Connerly Jr., who knows? And maybe, look, Coleman is 25 years old, By the way, this is going to be a really, really good chance for the anti-Adam Peters, Adam Peters can't draft people if Coleman steps in and does a great job as a third-round pick. That's going to make the 2024 class look better. Already, by the way, he started all those games as a rookie. All right, I see all of you. We'll do this for another segment. Stay on hold. DC, Billy, Jamal, Samaj. The question here, and we do have a line open if you want to jump in. How would you describe the loss of Laramie Tunsil? Devastating? Pretty bad? We'll be okay. Or don't worry, all will be fine. Brandon Coleman can do the job. 301-230-0980. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com.
Was there any thoughts at all to maybe Josh, who's had some experience in the past as well, maybe shuffling those guys?
Yeah, that's a fair question. It wasn't. We like the progression where Josh is. LT is going to be back, so we just thought let's keep the development of where Josh is, and not the shuffle of lots of shuffles.
Okay. That's why no on Connerly Jr. 301-230-0980. DC, thanks for holding. Go ahead. Describe the loss of Laramie Tunsil. Devastating, pretty bad, should be okay, or it's not a big deal at all.
Great day, Kevin. How are you?
What's up, DC?
Man, everything is up. I'm going to use the word hurtful because we had a vision for our line this year, and the battle was going to be at guard and left guard. Now we know that Tunsil's out for most of the year. I really think he's going to come back, but we can rest assured that Coleman has played there. No, he's not top 10 in the league, but he has held it down for a long period of time. Well, for a whole season, for a nice run into the playoffs. So I really think that when teams go through character building things like this, it makes them better, because Tunsil has really been involved with this O-line and took them to where he works out and everything. And I think he's still going to be there as far as, supporting and giving what his experience has brought to the team thus far. So it's hurtful, but I think it's going to help our team build character and push through this.
Yeah, they did work out together. Coleman went to did you send this to me? You sent this to me,
Sure
right?
did.
That Brandon Coleman trained with Laramie Tunsil in Alabama during the offseason. And Coleman had said at one point here early in training camp that the experience with Tunsil, quote, basically revamped his whole approach to how I treat camp and the season, closed quote. This from who took this? Ethan Cadeau from Monumental Sportsnet had a conversation with Coleman. So there you go. By the way, that quote also reminds me, part of what may have been the issue is that they wanted a different work ethic potentially with Coleman. I think, there's a lot of reasons why they went the direction they went in last year, but it isn't typical after the kind of season that the team had in 2024, with a player that they drafted in the third round, having stepped in and started at left tackle for 15 games for a team that went to the NFC Championship game almost exclusively because of the offense. It's not typical that you would then go out and trade 4 draft picks or a net 3 picks, because they got one back, for, Tunsil, and then, move that left tackle inside and then see him lose the gig to Chris Paul. Let's go to Billy. Billy and Chantilly, go ahead.
Kevin, condescendingly, the management team, head coach, general manager stated that laughingly they would never bring Ayuk into this amazing bloodstream they've created. And then they brought this clown.
Well, wait a minute. Hold on. Did he say that?
Yeah.
I missed
they
that.
would never bring Ayuk into the bloodstream.
He didn't say that specifically
He
about
didn't
Ayuk,
say,
though.
No.
They were they said they were very proud of their bloodstream and that they wouldn't bring a player in.
You were presenting it in a way in which I thought I had missed what would have been a pretty significant
Very
public
definitive
response from Adam Peters. So fake news from you on that. So continue.
Hold on. They didn't say that they wouldn't bring a player like Brandon Ayuk into the bloodstream.
No, I don't think they mentioned him by name at all. I'm pretty sure they didn't. Did I miss it? That's
No,
what I'm
you
asking you.
didn't.
Did I miss it?
They didn't infer it.
Well, that's different from them saying it. You were quoting Adam Peters. So I all I'm asking is, did I actually miss that quote where he said that about Brandon Ayuk? And apparently I didn't miss it. So
No,
continue.
you didn't.
Let's
You
focus
didn't.
on Tunsil.
You missed it. He said he wouldn't bring a player in the bloodstream with a player's social media activity that impacts player evaluation.
It actually
They were
wasn't
referring to
exactly
Brandon
his
Ayuk.
quote. I know the quote you're talking about, and it was from 2 weeks ago. But you just quoted it differently than you did the first time, because you said that he said that specifically using Brandon Ayuk's name. That's all.
Kevin, it was inferred. Social
Okay,
media
inferred is
activity-
different than you're quoting him. That's the way you read it. I remember saying the exact same thing. You really think a guy that just talked about the bloodstream of the organization being important, they're going to bring this crazy person into it? No.
Right.
But you,
I have
the
the
way
cut,
you
Billy.
framed it, I thought I had missed a quote from Adam Peters. Apparently, I didn't miss that quote. So continue on Tunsil.
Okay,
Describe
he
the
didn't
injury to
use- he didn't
Tunsil.
use- He didn't use Ayuk by name.
Okay, good. All right, fine.
Okay, we agree. he
You
didn't
just
use
corrected
Ayuk by
yourself.
name, so
Okay. A
okay,
retraction
I've
from
corrected
Billy.
myself.
A retraction.
A retraction from Billy. Now, let me
Yes.
say this clearly. They wouldn't bring a guy like Ayuk into the bloodstream, but they would bring a clown show me monster like Diggs into the bloodstream. So that's what they've done. They brought the clown show into the bloodstream.
Okay. What about the
Diggs is a
question? What
clown
about the
show.
question at
He
hand?
is a me monster. Hold on, dude.
No, you hold on.
No, Billy,
You hold
no.
on. You hold on, Billy. The question is, how would you describe the loss of Laramie Tunsil? Do you intend on answering that question, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
But you just did 10 minutes on the WNBA.
You know what?
That's a good one. That's a good comeback.
Let's just
Well done.
let's
Well
just
done.
say
But
a
guess
little-
what? It's my show. It's my show, and I can
know
do
it is.
whatever the hell I want. Right now, I'm trying to manage you. Allow some of the coaching, please. Answer the question about Tunsil.
My view is different than a lot of your callers' views. You know
Okay.
this.
We've
I'm
noticed.
trying to present my view.
You're not doing a
I'm
very
trying to
good job
present
of
my
answering
view.
the question.
The answer to the question is it's bad. But the problem is Adam Peters is a parts changer and not a culture builder. And he's been here for 3 years now, and he's not bringing in culture guys. He keeps changing parts and hoping the culture comes together. The culture leads the organization. The players don't lead the culture. You bring in players that meet your culture requirements.
I think
meet
that
your culture standing.
Billy, I think the head
And now we
coach
got
manages the culture. Wouldn't you say?
who picks the players, Max?
Listen,
Hey, Billy, there are plenty of players that have absolutely fit into the bloodstream that they've talked about. The
Totally
culture is
agree.
completely different than what it was when they got here. Yes, they have. And they've drafted some players that actually fit in to that. The biggest, if you want to talk about gambles, I would suggest that you're right, that the biggest gamble maybe to that is Diggs, but not one team that he's been on recently has said anything other than excellent teammate, shows up on Sundays and is a badass.
Patriots loved his locker room presence.
Yeah, they loved it. Now, you could say, well, why didn't they bring him back? Well, because they traded for A.J. Brown. They went out and signed a much younger Romeo Doubs, and they decided to go in that direction. So pretty bad is the answer to the question about Laramie Tunsil. Pretty bad. And that's an answer that I actually agree with. Maybe the only thing I agreed with from this, other than I did do 10 minutes on the WNBA. That was funny. Let's go to Jamal. Jamal, Laramie Tunsil, describe the loss. Devastating, pretty bad, they should be okay, or it's not that big of a deal.
Kevin, don't you ever in life let anyone question your character about being nice, because how you did not hang up on that guy and just give him the curve, I will never know. So I'm going to commend you on that. That was wonderful by you, bro. Goodness gracious. That was a
Well, I
bit
don't
much,
like
but,
hanging up on people when there is a back and forth like that. I don't. That's.
Yeah,
I don't.
I mean, I get
I
it.
like
No,
to
I
prefer.
get it.
And Billy's crazy
it
enough
makes
where it
sense.
at times can actually be a little bit entertaining.
No,
But
I get it,
continue,
but that
Jamal.
one was
That one was crazy. But anyway,
I mean,
it's bad.
between he and Mark and Largo,
bad.
I mean, they're
Like,
really they'd love to host their own show. We could give them an opportunity.
Yeah, for sure.
AM radio,
For
maybe
sure.
3 to 5 a.m. on a Tuesday night.
Yeah, but it's bad with the potential to be devastating. You made a comment about the AP people, and again, this is bad with the potential to be devastating for one thing. We drafted a tackle in the first round last year, so in my head, and mind you, Kevin, he did nothing but play left tackle until he got to our
I
roster.
know.
So in my head, that's an easy trade. First round pick on.
You're breaking up. Sorry about that. You're breaking up, Jamal. But, yeah, you heard the answer. We played the answer. Go ahead and play it again. This was Dan Quinn. He was asked about why Josh Connerly, who played left tackle in college and was a first-round pick by this team in 2025, why not just move Connerly Jr. over to left tackle? Here's what Quinn said.
Was there any thoughts at all to maybe Josh, who's had some experience in the past as well, maybe shuffling those guys?
Yeah, that's a fair question. It wasn't. We like the progression where Josh is. LT is going to be back, so we just thought let's keep the development of where Josh is, and not the shuffle of lots of shuffles.
So what he's saying is, he's continuing to develop as a right tackle in the league. And when, next year begins and Tunsil's back, or even later in the year when Tunsil's back, Tunsil's going to be the starting left tackle. And he's still essentially figuring out the right tackle spot. I thought he improved last year and was pretty good by the end of the year. And they didn't want to move him to left tackle, then decide who the right tackle is going to be. Is it going to be Wiley? Is it going to be Coleman? And then, end up having multiple changes rather than just the one, because Chris Paul certainly was right in there for the starting job at left guard. Let's go to Samaj. Samaj, go ahead.
Hey.
Hey.
You doing, man?
What's up, Samaj? Do we have Samaj? He's breaking up, right?
Am I there?
I got you now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, good morning, Coach. Thanks for taking my call, Max.
Sure.
Appreciate you guys always. A lot of my thoughts have already been mentioned, but I will say I started out as devastating, Kev, but I didn't realize that Coleman played left tackle that 24 season and the whole season. So be it that we already had somebody on the roster that's performed and at least performed up to average capabilities, it's not quite as devastating, but I still will put it in the devastating column looking at the entire line now, because now we got two holes. And so when I'm thinking two holes, it potentially can be devastating. So hopefully the coaching staff is right and Coleman can step up. But if it's not, if the coaching staff is a little off in this switch, then this comes back to the other new guys in the building, AP and Blau. It's going to test Blau and what he can do to scheme up better protection for J5. And AP may have to go out in the market and make some moves, possibly maybe even overpay for someone to keep the season going as planned. That's pretty much all my take, guys. Thanks for taking my call as always. Appreciate you guys.
All right. Thank you, Samaj. There is one thing that they won't miss with Laramie Tunsil out. I'll mention that when we come back. You'll hear what David Blau said about the loss just moments ago when we return. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, theteam980.com. Don't forget, you can watch this show on the Team 980's YouTube channel. Just hit the subscribe button, please, when you get there, and hit the like button as well.
Laramie within what you want to do offensively? How big a change does it make for you?
Sure. I'm just incredibly bummed for him, first and foremost. He's been everything that we've asked over the last really year and a half. And when you lose a player like that, man, it's hard. But DQ, ourselves as offense, we believe in the next man up, and we're going to just keep plugging away. And so there will be things that have to change, but we have all the trust in the world in Brandon, and he's played really well at left tackle over the last few years, and are excited to feature some of the things he does well too. And so, excited about the opportunity for him while also, hurting for Laramie.
David Blau, a little while ago out in Ashburn, holding his own presser post-practice today. Practice today, practice tomorrow, joint practice with the Dolphins on Wednesday. Then they'll have the day off, obviously, on Thursday, leading into the first preseason game of the summer. That'll be the Dolphins in Landover on Friday night. Look, their mentality has to always be next man up. I mean, that's the mentality of sports, team sports in general. It's why you have 53-man rosters and you have backups and you have backups to the backups. It's why you have a 17-man practice squad. It makes the development of that practice squad, the players you pick for that practice squad. Quinn always talks about his 70-man roster, not his 53-man roster, because he views those 17 practice squad players as likely going to be instrumental. Do you know that I read something this morning because they were talking about the J.J. McCarthy-Kyler Murray battle in Minnesota? And there are definitely some indications that J.J. McCarthy may not be handling it well. But also, Kyler Murray's not necessarily lighting it up in training camp based on, those that are there. Who knows what it'll look like when we get to the regular season. But 67 quarterbacks played in the NFL last year. 67 took snaps in the NFL last year. It is a league, it's a game, as Ken Beatrice used to say many years ago in this town, it's a game of attrition. It's a league of attrition. And you've got to be prepared for that. And it is a next man up mentality when you are out there and living it as your profession. Now, as observers of that profession, we can have our reactions, and my reaction is that's a bad loss for them heading into this year. It doesn't cancel the season. It doesn't mean that they can't be a good football team and they can't be a good offense. No, but you lost one of your best 2 or 3 players on the team at a very important position in the league. But it doesn't matter for them. They can't wallow because wallowing ain't going to get it done. It's next man up, and they've chosen to go with Brandon Coleman, who's played the position here a lot in 24 before they moved him inside and then watched him get benched inside last year because Chris Paul stepped up and played well. He's a young player. He was a third-round pick. He's played a lot of positions, and he spent an offseason at times with Laramie Tunsil hopefully learning. Maybe this is going to make Adam Peters and company look great for the selection of Brandon Coleman. You got to have guys that are capable of stepping in. If they get fearful that Coleman's not going to be able to hold up on the road in weeks 1 and 2 and against Seattle in week 3, there still could be moves that they could make. Taylor Decker's got experience with David Blau. He's out there. There's another Caden Wallace is out there. There are some players out there. And certainly there will be some players released when teams go from 90 down to 53. But right now, this is their move. And part of what makes a front office a good front office is when you lose key players, do you have players that can come in and keep the ship afloat? Last year, they did not. Now, they were asked to fill in for so many players, front line and then second line players that were lost. And they were picking players off the street to come in. That's a hard thing to really overcome. It doesn't usually happen. It's a 1 out of 100 situation when a team overcomes that kind of injuries and has a successful season. San Francisco kind of did it last year. But they still had a lot of really good players that played a lot of football last year. All right, David Blau. More from Blau, because this is the guy that is going to be, asked to not only make the decisions with respect to the personnel on offense and have a significant role in doing that, but from a scheme standpoint, certainly part of a game plan is to game plan in a way in which your weaknesses aren't exposed. This was him on Brandon Coleman's growth.
What are some of those things that you feel like you can do with Brandon, but also what kind of growth have you seen in him over at tackle, even last year?
Sure. You immediately, like when you watch the tape, oftentimes there's somebody jumping out from the offensive line, chasing a football, running, and his speed, athleticism just flashes every time you turn our film on. And then I think, like, you've seen a young man grow here, right? From having to play all those starts his rookie year and different experiences last year, and us sharing, with him that he was going to be the left tackle, and him lighting up, like, eager for the opportunity to go after this thing. I think he has demonstrated everything that we're looking for to protect that side for us.
And he's going to get tested. Philadelphia's defense is no joke on September 13th. Forget the three players they've got up front with Davis, Carter, and Ajomo. They added Jonathan Grenard. They've got the kid from last year, the rookie from last year, Jahad Campbell. They can get after the quarterback. There's going to be a big challenge very early in this season for Brandon Coleman, for the entire offensive line, for sure. And then, of course, Dallas week 2, they added Rashawn Gary, to that team. They're bringing back, Azaraku, who was, up and down as a rookie. And then, of course, it's week 3, and it's Seattle, the defending Super Bowl champions, who were pretty good on defense last year. Up front, guys like Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy. But DeMarcus Lawrence, no joke, as an outside pass rusher that probably will be matched up with a Brandon Coleman. So he'll get tested. He'll get tested early. And they got to get him ready. What number were we going to next, Max? I'm sorry, 3 or 4?
Let's hit 3 here, because I thought it was interesting about Blau learning how to install the offense for the first time.
All right, go ahead. This is Blau on installing the offense.
David, through the first couple of weeks of camp, what have you learned about just what goes into the process of installing the offense for the first time, with this being your first year as offense coordinator?
Man, that is a great question, because, right, I have a lot of ideas and things that I would love to do, but this time is really finding out who we are. Like, this is about finding out what we do well, what Jaden does well, what the skill guys do, what we can and can't do up front. And so there's times where you're like, man, I want to have a bunch of things in, but we got to pull back and work on the fundamentals and find out who this, Commander's offense is. So that has been a process. And, we've done a lot of call-up periods. So there's times where you walk out of a practice, you're thinking you're going to get through everything on the sheet, and you don't. So you go back to it, or do you keep pushing ahead? And so those are the things that I've navigated over the last, 10, 11 practices. So a lot of lessons, but it's been really good.
I like that question and answer. I'm glad you played that. That is a guy, as a first-time coordinator, with everything on his shoulders. He's making all of the decisions. He's not being asked by Cliff Kingsbury or Tavita Pritchard, what do you think? He is making these decisions for the first time. Personnel decisions. Who's good in what spot? And then what can we run with the personnel we have? And what that will advance to over the next, certainly by September 13th, is in this upcoming game, what is our best mix of personnel and what is our best mix of our play sheet that we can call against this particular team? And then, by the way, calling it, doing it in a timely manner, doing it in a way in which it instills confidence in everybody on that offense, and then having the ability within a game, if things aren't going well, to adjust. yeah, what we thought would work isn't working, so what's plan B? It's a lot when you're the guy and the guy for the first time. And I think you heard, him say, look, I'm doing this for the first time, and there's a lot that I'm figuring out as we get through this. This was him, David Blau, talking about Jaden Daniels handling the offense.
And obviously it's an adjustment for all the players, but for Jaden specifically, it's been a lot more under center work for him, and that changes a lot from footwork to timing, et cetera. How has he handled that so far? And as a former quarterback, like, how much goes into making that kind of a switch? I don't know if you had to during your career, but going from mostly shotgun to a mix of both.
Sure. He hasn't missed a beat. We track everything. We've tracked every throw he's made over the last 3 years. So we have metrics to measure all of those statistics. And he's as accurate as he's ever been. He's completed as many passes as he ever has. And it's just a testament to asking him to do something different and him wanting to grow and evolve. And that's what this is all about for our whole group. Like, the version you see here won't be the same version of this offense you see next year, and to, everywhere you go, and we just will continue to evolve. So I'm proud of him, the work he's put into it up until this point, and he hasn't missed a beat.
David Blau on Jaden Daniels. There's some stuff on Diggs. This is the first time we've heard from Blau about Stephon Diggs being added. But before we get to what he said about Stephon Diggs, this was David Blau responding to a question about the other new coordinator on the other side of the ball, Durante Jones, and how Durante Jones is sort of helping Blau by showing them a lot of different looks.
Then throughout camp, all the different looks that Durante's defense has thrown at you all, moving people around, showing all these sorts of things, how has that kind of helped you with catering your offense for this season?
Sure. They've made it as hard as possible, and every day is a new challenge. And that's what I love so much, is that everybody on our offense is being forced to think, forced to understand what Durante's trying to get accomplished, and that's the power of attacking aggressive style defenses. They have certainly pushed the envelope for us on communication and growth.
Wouldn't it be so interesting if we get to the regular season and let's just say 2 or 3 weeks into it, we're sitting here and it's very obvious that the defense is actually the better part of the team? Now, defense it's not always a given, especially against teams that are experienced, especially teams that bring back experienced quarterbacks, that defense is ahead of offense. But it is probably the case more often than not. What if Durante Jones is the star? What if the defensive personnel that they've added turns into a legit, top half of the league defense and is really, for the first time in a few years, doing its part? I still kind of don't know offensively what it's going to look like in terms of the scheme. Everybody's convinced that we're just going to be watching a Sean McVay, a Kyle Shanahan, a Ben Johnson style offense, and there will be a lot to that. But I don't think Jaden's going to be under center on every single snap. I don't think every single run is going to be inside zone or outside zone. I don't think every single pass is going to be play action. But I do think that we'll have a lot more play action in the offense, and then it'll be whether or not it looks like, it does in some of those other spots with those quarterbacks. I think he's a natural for it, for this particular fit. But, man, the defense, it's completely different. I'd love to know how many defenses have changed as much as Washington's defense has changed personnel-wise and coaching-wise in one offseason. I mean, it's very possible that of the 11 starters that are on the field, 7 of them will be new players. 7 with a new coordinator. That's a lot of change. Not to mention 2 to 3 of the first 5 or 6 that will contribute and play on defense are brand new. All right, when we come back, David Blau on Stephon Diggs. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com. David Blau spoke after practice today. Dan Quinn before it. The real tough news for the team over the weekend is Laramie Tunsil is essentially done for the next 4 to 6 months with a tricep injury. He suffered that injury during practice on Saturday. And Brandon Coleman, they made the decision pretty quickly. Brandon Coleman will step in and replace him at left tackle. Man, we have seen an increase in injuries with big offensive linemen in recent years. Rashawn Slater last year. We've had Andrew Thomas and others go down early in the year. And that tricep injury really has been an injury of the last 15 years or so. That is one that just keeps popping up. I'm sure somebody can explain that as to why we've seen more of those over the last, 10, 15 years, something like that. But a tough loss for sure to not have one of the 2 or 3 best players on the team, really not debatable, gone for the majority, if not the entire season. David Blau, the offensive coordinator, talked about, Tunsil and Coleman. We played that for you last segment. But, look, the last week's been active in terms of things that we can really kind of touch and feel as observers this time of year. Tunsil's injury, big news. The addition of Stefon Diggs, big news. This was Blau earlier on how Stefon Diggs helps open up the playbook.
Hey, David, good to see you. Obviously one thing you did get was Stefon Diggs. Obviously, I'm sure you like having that addition, but what does that do for you in terms of the playbook? Now we have like maybe one guy versus before you were looking at like maybe some combination of a few guys to sort of do the same job.
Sure. I think Stefon adds an element of experience, savvy, understanding timing, leverage. He's played a lot of meaningful football, a lot of yards. And I think through having him for 3 practices, you feel his leadership too. You feel him bringing the guys together, challenging everybody to keep pushing forward. And he really, in just a couple of days, you guys have seen, 4 catches the other day. He had at least 2 or 3 today. Like, the ball finds him because he finds space.
Yeah, he does find space. He is really good at finding, against zone coverage in particular, where is it that I need to kind of set it down? I need to slow it down. And he makes himself available. One more from Blau on Diggs and his ability to move the chains on 3rd down.
Hey, Coach. I want to get back to Diggs for a second.
Sure.
He had a great proclivity to move the chains with the last couple of years. Having a weapon like that on 3rd down, what do you think that does for Jaden in terms of having a target, and also what do you think it does for Terry, knowing that some attention has to be paid to the other side of the field as well?
I think he drilled it. Like, he's a go-to guy. He moves the chains. He has his whole career. So, we'll certainly set it up for him to be a priority in that instance. And when opportunities come to him or Terry or Chig or any of the other group, in those wide receiver rooms, we mentioned Bill, we expect them to be able to be ready for those moments.
Yeah, I mean, he had 51 receptions last year for first downs. 51 in, by the way, a snap count that for him was pretty low. So he did a very good job of being available for Drake May and moving the sticks on 3rd downs. I think that's exactly what his role is here. His role is not to stretch the defense. His role is to be a guy that on 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5 gets open in a condensed situation against zone or man. By the way, Diggs still pretty good after catch as well. I mentioned earlier in the show that Dan Quinn, before practice, talking about Trey Amos, who got banged up a little bit in Saturday's practice. This was Quinn. Amos had just come back. This was Quinn on that.
Trey Amos left practice early the other day. Any update on what's going on
Yeah,
with him?
it was actually on the deep ball that he and Terry, it was like, deep ball down the field on the left sideline. And so kind of came down awkwardly on the ankle, so just kind of holding him out, got sore, and I'll have a better update for you in a day or two.
There you go. Did he have an update?
This was
Not
today.
after. Yeah, that was today. Yeah. It happened on Saturday, right? There's something that he said after Saturday's practice that I wanted to read. Did you find that Treylon Burks bite that I asked you to find?
I've not grabbed it yet.
It's okay. I can read it. So he was asked on Treylon Burks so far in camp. And by the way, Ben's got his first, 53-man roster projection out. So we'll talk to him about that at 12. But Burks is an interesting, situation. Former first-round pick in Tennessee, never really developed into anything. He was essentially on the street, no team last year. They picked him up when they had all the injuries to wide receiver. He came in, he kind of fit in. He had that exceptional catch, one-handed catch in the end zone against Denver. And they signed him pretty quickly when the season ended to a deal to bring him back. He saw the opportunity, obviously, with just Terry McLaurin on the roster. That was the only given to make the team to be able to contribute. And he was asked about Burks the other day, Quinn was, and he said, quote, "You may have noticed, I think he came in leaner, and that was intentional for him. More speed for the longer ones. He's routinely one of our top speed guys at practice. Like, he can really cover ground. He's been working kick returns, punt returns. But at that Z position, that would be the opposite of Terry on the other side, we really feel his impact, Deep routes, in-breaking routes. He's got a long catch radius. And so that's the thing that you feel on a regular basis. You may have even seen a little bit of that yesterday in the one-on-ones. Fabian had good coverage on him, Fabian Moreau, that would be. But the quarterback had put it in just a spot that Trey, with his length, was there. And Fabian couldn't get around it. By the way, Fabian's got pretty good length and size as well. Those are some of the things that we feel with Trey. He's an excellent competitor, and so we're pleased with where he's at. That's one of those quotes that you get from a head coach about a player, where it's not just a throwaway line. Somebody asks about a player, and he says, he's out here and he's competing, and he's pretty good in some areas, got some work in. No, I mean, he told you that Trey Burks is no doubt. Not that I thought that there was a chance he wouldn't be on the final roster. I do. But I think he basically told you that it's McLaurin, it's Diggs, and it's Burks to start off with. And Antonio Williams will get some work for sure, and McCaffrey might, and De'Ami Brown might, but they're not going to be in 11 personnel a ton. You don't think they're going to be anyway. I mean, they might be if games get, sideways. You don't want that. But Burks being able to be one of their better speed guys, I thought that was interesting. Burks working kick and punt returns, certainly an interesting development. What does that mean for a guy like Jalen Lane? What does that mean for a guy like Luke McCaffrey? It means that they want more options in case they get down to a difficult roster spot decision, because they don't want Burks. If they can have Burks be a guy that's back on kickoff returns, they might not need McCaffrey. Look, I don't want Jalen Lane going anywhere. I thought he was super explosive and super exciting with a big upside as a punt returner, for sure. Switching subjects real quickly. How about the weekend for the Nats? All the injuries, all the trades, the big losing skid that they had. Going into the trade deadline, they lost 7 games in a row. Now they have quietly won 4 of their last 5. They swept Cincinnati over the weekend. They did that without James Wood. He's out right now. They're doing it with, by the way, C.J. Abrams hitting leadoff now. Chaparro is, one of those guys that was going to replace Luis Garcia Jr. a bit. He is on fire the last 3 or 4 games. He's got a 4-game hitting streak, and over the weekend he was 3 for 4 with 5 RBIs in the weekend series against Cincinnati. And the Nats are just kind of hanging around in a National League playoff race that no one's sort of running away with it at this point. The Cubs have that first wild card spot nailed down because the Brewers right now have the best record in baseball in the National League Central. But after that, the Diamondbacks and Phillies have the same record for the second and third wild card spots. Then the Padres are a game back. The Marlins are 3 back. The Cardinals are 3.5 back. And the Nats, 2 games below 500, nearing back to 500, are 4.5 out with a 3-game winning streak. And by the way, I'm not even sure anybody knows this. You know, the runs that they've scored, they led the National League in runs scored. They lead baseball still in runs scored. They've got 643 total runs scored. And the next closest after that is Pittsburgh with 602. But Washington's current plus 24 run differential is actually 5th in the National League with all the runs they've given up. They're not giving up yet. It's not going to be as exciting, I don't think, down the stretch. But they get a big series at home against the Cubs, who are obviously not only easily in the playoff picture, but they've been red hot as of lately. They had a 6-game winning streak or a 5-game winning streak, including sweeping the Dodgers last week. But you get the Cubs in town. You know, it's kind of a series where wish it were a little bit more important. Wish the Nats were 2 or 3 games above 500 right now. But still, they have not given up a really good series for them over the weekend. Not against a great team, but a good result for them. All right, Ben Standig from Ashburn next. Every Monday and Friday, and sometimes in between, Ben Standig is this show's Washington Commanders insider. He's at camp every day. He writes about the team every single day. I would encourage you to subscribe to his Substack called Last Man Standig. You can link to it very easily if you follow him on X at Ben Standig. He joins us right now. Wow, that was a blow on Saturday. They moved quickly, and I think you were one of the first to report it, if not the first, that they were moving to Brandon Coleman. But just give me your reaction to what you've kind of felt in, the wake of this kind of injury, because I think if we had done a segment, which I had planned on doing at some point during camp, who's the player they can ill afford to lose more than any other on the team, not named Jaden, I think Tunsil would have been the answer for a lot of people. So how is everybody dealing with this loss, and what do you make of it?
Yeah, well, I'm just a quick plug. It's 20% off the annual subscription the next 72 hours.
Wow.
Just go to lastmanstanding.substack.com. Cool. All right. So I did a story like a week or so ago. Like, who are they? When Allegretti and John Bates went out, and you're looking at what happens if those guys are out. I'm like, okay, I think this is a good time to do the who are the most indispensable players on the team list. I do it kind of every year.
Yeah.
And this was before the Diggs signing, so I had Jaden 1, McLaurin 2, Tunsil 3. But then once the Diggs signing happens, I would have flipped McLaurin and Tunsil. So yes, I mean it is impossible to overstate what's going on here. It isn't just the one position. It's not just you have this guy who's going up against some elite pass rusher, and that's the focus. It's way more than that. It's the idea of, okay, we don't have to send any extra help over there. We can send it some other place because we know he's going to be fine. We know that any play we design with Laramie Tunsil involved, it's going to get executed to the highest degree. Obviously, even the quarterback, not that Jaden necessarily has happy feet, but you're going to have it less when that guy's over there than not. And then there's even ripple effects down to the bench, which is the whole other story now. So yeah, I mean it's impossible to overstate how big of a loss this is. I do think they're a little bit fortunate in that the guy who's coming in, I think, can play the position. Not every team has a viable backup left tackle, but yeah, it is not the same thing. And to lose Tunsil, I mean, look, just from the pure investment standpoint, they make the trade for him a year ago, give up a net free draft pick. They sign him this offseason to a 2-year, $60 million extension. All fine. And so that there's this huge investment you make, and it blows up in your face for no reason. You can't do anything about it. And this is part of the nature of football. And in this case, this absolutely sucks.
I've seen the video, but for those that haven't, just describe how it happened for everybody.
Yeah, so he's going up in a one-on-one against Owe. Looks like Owe, was just coming at him and, sort of threw out his arm towards Tunsil, and it looks like he just hit him on the left arm. Tunsil immediately kind of grabs at it. But, I'm not a medical expert, so my first thought was like maybe more bicep, but okay, it was the tricep. And Tunsil sort of, the video we saw was just some fan shooting it, so it didn't stay with Tunsil, but it looked like he was sort of about to crouch down a little bit, like, he was in some legit pain. And then, I was watching a different part of the field at that moment, but he went into the tent right by the field, and he only stayed in there for a moment and went back straight up into the building, which, seemed to suggest there may be something more going on, but you never know. And then there was the initial report from NFL Network that doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but then obviously it went completely sideways like once they do the actual testing.
So it seemed like there wasn't really much of a doubt in the minds of Dan Quinn, Stapleton, the offensive line coaches, et cetera, on what the plan would be to move Coleman to that spot. Do you think they gave anything else that much consideration? I mean, we heard the Quinn soundbite about Connerly and the possibility of that, and he didn't want the shuffling, but they seemed like they moved quickly and confidently. Is that fair to describe it that way or not?
I think so. I mean, I'm sure, just like with anything else, they do their due diligence, but to me, it was the only move that made any sense. I've seen people say, oh, they don't trust Connerly to move up there. No, like right tackle is kind of important. It's not a number position or anything. It's important. So he's there, and because Tunsil is going to be back at some point, maybe it's next year, you don't want to disrupt everything. So they're leaving Connerly there for him to continue to be the starting tackle, which is important. And yeah, if you move Connerly, now and you say you're moving Coleman to right tackle. Well, now you're affecting two positions instead of just the one. So I don't imagine that. And then in terms of adding somebody, Taylor Decker, the former Lion, is still a free agent. I think he had some sort of a contract issue with the Lions, and that led to his release. But, I checked with somebody who covers that team, and they're like, his shoulders are pretty messed up. Now, maybe he can play and power through it because these guys are maniacs, but he's still out there. I mean, if he was a viable guy, somebody would have signed him by now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's reputation that you're banking on. And again, maybe he would be fine. Maybe to a degree, if you have Coleman at left guard, that would be better. But it's not like, oh, this is some panacea. But with Coleman, again, he played the last 3 games last year at tackle. They got to see it, and I think there was legitimate improvement over what we saw the previous year with him at the same position. So, I don't think there's any question that he has the tools to get the job done. He's very, very athletic for a guy his size, smart kid. I think last year one of the issues was he was missing a lot of time in practice with injuries. And, I'm not going to say somebody should play through pain, but I think there was some degree of like, hey, man, like you got to have to play through some pain here because we need you. And if you're not going to be able to do that, then, what are we going to do? And then on top of it, he was kind of struggling at guard as well. So, if that part of his game has been raised up, playing through whatever, then I think that's a huge deal. I will also say that, we're talking about the left tackle position because that's where Tunsil played. I think this is potentially a huge impact on Chris Paul at left guard. Chris Paul came out of nowhere last year to have a pretty solid year, really good as a pass blocker. And, in talking to him last year and talking to Tunsil, like that relationship was a big deal, both from like a mentor-mentee standpoint, but also, Chris Paul last year had Tunsil to his left, Tyler Biadasz to his right. Those are, Tunsil's obviously an elite player. Biadasz is a solid player, and that helps you so much when you're a guy who didn't have a lot of experience. Now you've got Coleman to the left. Well, Allegretti at some point will be back out there, but right now it's obviously not the case. And, now Chris Paul's going to be more exposed because he doesn't have that safety net of having a Tunsil there. So how that unfolds is a big deal as well. So yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. The ripple effect doesn't go just beyond who's playing left tackle.
Yeah, no, that's really, really good stuff. And I think also, and I discussed it earlier in the show, I think there was a lot going on with their feelings about Brandon Coleman. He did a nice job as a rookie, and certainly when you come off a season, Ben, in which you win 12 games and you're 16 minutes away from the Super Bowl, and it's the offensive side of the football that's had the majority responsibility for the success in 2024, and you drafted the rookie that stepped in at left tackle and played adequately enough, you're not typically going out aggressively to get. Now, look, Tunsil's availability and that opportunity was there, but there was something that we as fans sometimes don't catch about what they see or what they feel about the player, at least at that point in his career, and his readiness to be a full-time left tackle and a full-time protector of their number one asset, their quarterback. So I think there was a lot going on. I think you'd agree with their decision to trade for Tunsil, eventually the decision to move Coleman inside, and then, as you mentioned, the further decision eventually to move Paul into Coleman's spot. But he's 25, and it sounds like they feel like he's grown in a lot of different ways, and they're confident in putting him in there.
Well, not just that, they drafted Josh Connerly in the first round.
Yes.
A month after getting Tunsil. They really went all in on offensive tackle. And again, to be fair, a lot of people pre-draft in 2024 thought Coleman would be best served at guard. So
yes.
it's just like we went through this with Brandon Scherf a few years ago. Maybe they were like, okay, we see that as well. We think he can be a lead guard. Let's do that. But you could tell, like, to the point of, like, they may see something that we don't. In that week 2 last year, they benched Allegretti from guard. Okay, well, Allegretti is a guy who's, been around, a bit of a, journeyman, not not a huge deal. Okay. But then to bench Coleman, a guy who did, have a bit of an investment and a guy who does seem like some upside, it felt like that was much more than like whatever PFF grades are going to tell us. And, again, I think Coleman has, I think he's a really nice kid. Just as a quick anecdote. So last year when I was doing my survey at the end of the year with the players, and one of the questions was, if you only get one Pro Bowl spot, who would you pick for this team? A lot of people went Tunsil, Brandon Coleman went with Chris Paul, and he gave me all the reasons and that Chris Paul well. And I said to him, dude, I got to be honest with you. I think you're a bigger man than me. I don't know that I'd be able to point to the guy who replaced me. He's like, well, look, it's not his fault. I mean, he didn't do anything. He did a good job, and I see it like I see it. And to me, there was a certain amount of maturity there. There's a certain overly niceness, about the kid. He works hard. He smiles a lot. And now it's just so now it's just a matter of, hey, you're a huge guy, be a huge guy on the field and take advantage of the tools you have and get after it. So, yeah, it's look, the offensive line in general, we talked all this offseason. They got to get more help at receiver. They need more help at corner. They did those things. The offensive line now is a huge question mark. And, again, it's not just that Tunsil's out, but it exposes the issues they have on other spots, including the depth. So very much a work in progress that I'm sure Adam Peters is trying to figure out some solutions.
All right. Talking to Ben Standig. So Trey Amos got banged up Saturday as well. I played the Dan Quinn sound on that, but are you hearing anything? Is there any real concern about him?
Well, it's not like Quinn definitively said he'll be back in like a day.
Right.
It kind of was like, we'll see where we're at in a couple of days and whatever. And obviously, he said ankle, but this is of course a player that just literally 2 days prior had just gotten off the PUP list following his broken leg he had last season. So maybe these things are not related, but at the same time, it's hard to wonder, is there something there? So, yeah, I think there's at least some kind of a question. And, I just mentioned, they added Rasul Douglas with Trey Amos. They got Mikey Sanders still, Meek Robertson. Okay, it's a solid little quartet, maybe, we can quibble about this or that. But, you take Trey Amos out of that, and now all of a sudden, I don't even know who the fourth corner is necessarily. The guy who might have been the next man up retired. It's definitely a question, and hopefully this is just one of those deals, and it's not a big matter. But considering again that this was the guy who had missed months with a different injury, it's like, ooh, okay, well, hopefully these things are not related and it's just random. But yeah, you got to be a little bit concerned. But like I said, my guess would be we probably don't see him this week, meaning practice and the Miami joint practice would be a guess. That's just a guess, but that's unfortunate.
Yeah, Witherspoon is the player that Ben was referring to in terms of the player that retired that happened last week. I'll get to your 53-man projection, your first one, here in a moment, but apparently the first really bad day for the kickers today. Can you share with us how bad it really was?
Yeah, so they did the same situation they've been doing, start around like the 31, 32, and then each kicker goes consecutively. Today they only did 5 kicks. Usually it's been 6. They go back 5 yards and keep going. And Moody, he made the first one and then proceeded to miss 4 straight. And that is real. That's hard to do for these guys, 4 straight. And we're I think at that moment we were all like, okay, well, I don't know. We can stop debating about this competition, except that Drew Stevens, who has been pretty lights out most of camp, no matter the distance, he proceeds to miss 3 of 5. So I don't know. Maybe we got to check in on the holder. I'm kidding, but something was a miss today that just had not been there to that degree. So again, Stevens has been pretty efficient, lights out for the most of the camp. So hopefully that's just a one-off, and maybe there was something weird going on in terms of the field or the ball. I have no idea. But, yeah, not a good day. And Moody has missed now a ton of kicks in the last, I think, 4 practices where the kickers were involved. And, it feels to me like that competition is getting to the point of not being one. As long as Stevens doesn't sort of, vomit all over himself in the actual preseason games, and I don't think he will. He's just a pretty confident kid. I feel like he's kind of taking this job right now.
Is he? Do they practice the kickoffs enough to know if there's an advantage with one or the other on kickoffs? Because it is a true specialty now.
Yeah, no, they really haven't. Now, again, maybe they're doing it away from us, but when we see special teams, and sometimes they do have it where when the returners are in the game, it's often like somebody just throws the ball down the field, or like they're not doing those types of kicks. Now, I'm sure they're working on it to some end, and you're right, that is a huge deal. It isn't just the old days where go kick the ball out of the end zone and call it a day. You got to get it inside the 20 there and all that. So I can't tell you for sure what's going on. I guess we'll probably get to see it against Miami, assuming they score a little bit. Yeah, no, I think it's a good question. So that would be another variable. But again, you would like to imagine that it can't be that big of a deal for him to learn how to do that.
Joint practice on Wednesday, the game on Friday night. I forget what Quinn's told us the last 2 years leading up to the first preseason game. Has he revealed starters' minutes prior to the first preseason game the last 2 summers or not?
I mean, a little bit. I mean, let's not forget, Jaden Daniels, the play that to me was the most important play of the Jaden Daniels era was the preseason game when he audibled out of they wanted a simple. Yeah, simple. I was like, oh, okay, this kid's got some moxie. So, they did have, obviously, the starters in then. I asked Quinn today, is like, in light of the Tunsil situation, does it give you any trepidation about using guys? And he's like, no. I mean, look, it's football. It's contact. These things are going to happen. So how much are they going to go with the starters in this game? I mean, honestly, I still would kind of bet not much in light of what we're discussing here. Look, again, even if let's just say Jaden goes out there, you're currently looking at a center in Julian Good-Jones, who I didn't even put on my 53. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know that he's making the team. And then you have 2 guys on the left side who are one guy is learning, getting back out to a position he hasn't played all summer. So it's not the most ideal scenario to throw him out there. At the same time, are you going to play Stephon Diggs? It would be good to get some chemistry there. By the way, that combination already looks pretty midseason for me. In practice, Diggs is so smooth getting open. So that's a good sign. But, we don't know for sure. I mean, basically, Quinn said they're going to have a conversation with internally to figure out what they want to do. And the joint practice comes first. So I think a lot of it also will come down to, do they feel they accomplished what they wanted to in the joint practice? And if they do, then maybe they don't see the point of bringing Jaden or others onto the field.
Talking to, of course, our team insider, Ben Standig. I read this quote from Quinn last hour, and I just thought it was interesting because I know somebody specifically asked him about Treylon Burks, but he gave, a pretty lengthy answer. He does that on occasion. I'm not saying that he doesn't have a lot, but sometimes it's not, of substance. I thought this was. I'm wondering, I don't even know who asked him this question. Maybe you did. But he said, first of all, Burks came in leaner, and he's got more speed than he previously had. He's routinely one of our top speed guys at practice. He can really cover ground. He's been working kick returns, punt returns, but at that Z position, which for those of you who don't know, that's the other outside receiver. Terry would be the X. The other outside would be the Z. He writes, we really feel his impact. Deep routes, in-breaking routes. He's got a long catch radius, and that's the thing that you feel on a regular basis. And he went on and on and on. But I just, when I read that, because I read the transcripts if I don't hear the press conferences, that he's working on kick returns and punt returns. I just wondered whether or not that's so that if it comes down to him or Lane or him or McCaffrey, that he's got that ability as well. Did you make anything of Quinn's response the other day about Treylon Burks?
I think the return part is just purely in case of emergency, like last year when they had to throw Mikey Sanderson in. I think it's more just that. I can't comprehend they would have
Didn't he fumble against the Dolphins in Madrid? Sanderson, yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a guy with Burks' injury history that they would expose in that regard. They have, other guys.
Okay.
But that aside, the thing was, so they bring in Diggs, and at this point of Diggs' career, it looks like he's probably going to be more of a slot guy than he
Yes.
is an outside guy. And they already have Antonio Williams, Jalen Lane, and Luke McCaffrey, all of whom seemingly are best served coming out of the slot. So now all of a sudden it's like, well, wait, who is going to be on that other side? And obviously they'll mix and match, and Diggs will be there. But Burks is one of the few guys that they have who can really, well, not one of the few, but he's one of the guys that can play that spot, and it gives you something unique because he's a tall guy, vertical ability. I've heard he's hit 22 miles an hour running in camp. So, yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, I think in my 53 that you mentioned, I have them keeping 7 receivers. It pains me to not include Van Jefferson because I think he's been, other than McLaurin, maybe the best receiver out here practice after practice.
Right.
But I think with Diggs, I think there's a lot of duplication now between these guys, and Burks gives you something a little bit more unique. So, yeah, I can see them keeping Burks. It is also possible he may have to figure out how to play on special teams because if he's going to be active, right, Terry's not special teams, Diggs is in special teams. All the other receivers might need to be just from a numbers game. So maybe he's got to figure out a niche. But, yeah, I mean, I totally understand why they would be, you know, excited for what he can do because it's at least unique relative to the other guys they have.
Well, I think that in addition to the kick and punt return part catching my ear was just that he's been one of the best speed guys in camp. That's not what I would have thought going into camp.
Yeah, no, I mean, I had heard like last year when they signed him that he had, you know, been clocked in that 22 mile an hour range. I mean, that's why he's such a tantalizing guy because, you know, look, he was a first round pick, you know, the same year Jahan Dotson was. This isn't a guy that just, it's not like Jaden Bradley, who we're all talking about to a degree, who's a UDFA. We're probably all overstating what he is. Burks is a guy that, hey, was a first round pick, justifiably so, but injuries kind of just wrecked him. And at Tennessee, he didn't always have good quarterback play. So there is a huge upside here if it clicks. The issue has been his health for the most part. Also, I would say like sort of play-to-play consistency. The thing here is, though, like now, especially with Diggs, they don't need him to be out there all the time. They just need him out there in certain circumstances. And, yes, with his ability to make, you know, to make plays with the ball in his hands and get down the field, that's obviously a huge deal. The lack of playmaking was a big problem last year, and even, you know, at points this offseason, we were all kind of like, I don't know if they have enough. But now if Burks is all of a sudden your third or fourth receiver and he's healthy, yeah, that's a huge weapon potentially for this team, especially, again, when Diggs and McLaurin aren't the biggest guys. To have a guy like that would definitely be a weapon, but he's got to stay healthy, and hopefully the consistency that he's shown somewhat, I think for the most part here in camp, can remain.
Burks ran coming out of Tennessee before that draft. He ran a 4.55 40, not necessarily a blazer for sure. All right, I wanted on your 53 man, was receiver the hardest position, or was there another position harder to determine the spots?
Yeah, I mean, typically I only keep 6, just, you know, in a general sense. This time I went for 7 because, like I said, I just think that these guys have all looked pretty good. I think I said, like De'Ami Brown I wanted to put as a lock because I know how much Quinn likes him. He helps on special teams. He could play the X when McLaurin's off the field. But, you know, he was maybe having a little bit quieter of a camp relative to some of the other guys. And then the first play of practice today, he gets a 40-yard play down the field from Jaden. So scratch off the quiet part. So, yeah, I mean, it was a little tough. Like I said, last year, not only Van Jefferson making the team, I might have had him starting, you know. And this year, I just don't know if there's going to be room for him. But the other one is the offensive line because obviously the Tunsil situation, but when you look at the depth and you factor in that Dan Quinn just the other day said the reason they brought in a bunch of veterans free agents is because he wanted to see more competition out of that group. And they didn't just bring in guys who are like camp bodies. They brought in 3 guys who have played over a combined 200 games in the NFL and started over 100. So, like, they're looking for more than just, you know, help to get through the summer. And because of the fact that Tunsil just got hurt and these guys basically haven't done anything yet, I'm like, I don't even know how to justify who anybody would be, like, for the 9th spot, the last spot in the offensive line. So I left it TBD because I'm like, this isn't a cop-out. I'm like, I got to see these guys play. Like, you know, clearly they didn't like something. So if I'm just going to put down the names of the guys who are here, that seems like that's going against what they're kind of looking at right now.
All right, I'm going to end with this because several people sent this to me over the weekend, and I know you tweeted it out as well. Stefan Diggs on social media tweeted out, essentially, you got to help me, guys, get number 7. He wants to wear number 7. He's wearing 18 in camp. There's no number 18. Other numbers that he's worn in the NFL, 14, the rookie Antonio Williams is wearing that. 8, he wore that last year. That's Marcus Mariota's number 1. He's worn that in Houston. And by the way, that was his college number at Maryland. Rashad White is wearing that. So are they going to give him Joe Theismann's jersey number? I mean, that was a big mistake with Dwayne Haskins. God rest his soul. Snyder completely effed that up 7 ways to Sunday to put that on Joe. I thought it was despicable what Snyder did. Just disgraceful to put that on Joe. But, you know, Dwayne Haskins was Dan's pick, and he wanted to please him. And Haskins wanted number 7, and he put Joe on the spot. And Joe didn't want to look like, look like a jerk by saying no, even though the entire fan base, I think, would have supported Joe in that moment. So is that what he wants number 7, right? He wants number 7. Will the team give it to him?
Well, I think to your point of it being a disgrace, like his number is one of those. It's like been unofficially retired, right?
It's been a protected jersey. Now we're retiring jerseys, so they may think differently about that. That's why I'm asking you. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think if they're going to play the bit of we're keeping certain numbers out, and then just because somebody asks for it doesn't mean we should change our mind, they have to make that decision. Like, they should not be putting it on Theismann. They should say,
right,
hey, you know what, we've reconsidered the policy, and we're starting to retire numbers, and, at some point we run out of numbers, so we're going to make all these numbers now available, and therefore, if Diggs wants 7, so be it. But if it's going to be like, hey, Joe, what do you think? Nah, screw that. Like, don't put this on the guy. Because, I mean, what is Joe going to do? I have seen a lot of pushback from people saying, no, don't do that. That's, sacrilegious. But I'm sure there are a lot of people going, oh, come on, give him what he wants, make him happy. We need him to play. So, I just hope that whatever happens, they don't put it on Theismann. I don't know. If the question at some point is, should he have the actual number retired? I mean, Theismann won a Super Bowl, the first one. He won an MVP. He was, a huge piece of the Joe Gibbs getting this thing going. But I don't know that we're talking about retirement there. But again, if you're gonna hold it out, then hold it out. Like, don't put it on the player.
Look, I've done this, 100 times over the years, even before they decided to start retiring numbers. Joe's on the debatable list for me. He's not a given. Yeah. The no debaters are Sonny, Darryl Green, Sammy Baugh, Riggo, Bobby Mitchell, and Art Monk. There's one left on the no debate list, and that's Charlie Taylor. Charlie Taylor's jersey should be the one that goes in next year and gets retired. And then after that, Joe's jersey and Larry Brown's and Chris Hamburger's and Jake's and Russ Grimm's and Ken Houston's, those are, jerseys that can be debated. And I wouldn't have a problem with any one of those being retired. I just don't think it's a no debate. I think there's a debate there. I gave you the 7 that to me are no debates. Obviously, Sean Taylor's jersey's retired as well. But it should still be a protected jersey, and it should not be given to Stefan Diggs, in my opinion. And to your point, beyond that, the team has to make that decision and not put it back on Joe. That is the cowardly way out, and it's unfair to Joe. You're the organization. You choose which numbers get retired and which get protected. If we're protecting jerseys, Joe's jersey's at the top of the list of the remaining jerseys that haven't been protected, other than Charlie Taylor. 42 should be retired, actually. And Joe should be protected, and Stefan needs another number, not 7. That's my opinion.
I agree. As you were going through it, I couldn't think of any other players that I would say should be on the no doubt list. I mean, we want to discuss Doc Walker, 88 maybe, but yes. Other than that, no. I mean, I'm with you. They've done it. Obviously, it took a long time to get some of this done. They're getting the numbers done. Whether Taylor is retired next year, soon, that should be the one. And then, like you said, after that, we can have some debates. But yeah, either the numbers are available or they're not. That's at some point it does become tough. I mean, you can't, they run out of numbers.
Yeah,
I
of course,
wondering,
but
like, the
that's
Green Bay
why you
Packers-
why you also make it, very difficult to get a jersey retired. And they have retired the appropriate jerseys. Sean Taylor's was very much a debatable, and that's more to the discretion of the owner at the time because of the circumstances surrounding Sean's career and life, obviously. But no, there can still be some protecteds. Joe's would be at the top of that list after Charlie Taylor. Hopefully next year, I would guess that 42 is going to be retired next year. And then, Diggs said via social media, y'all got to help me get the GOAT, Theismann, to bless me with that number 7. That's what he wrote on his Instagram story, requesting to wear number 7. Personally, I think he should wear 14 and tell the rookie to find another number. That makes sense to me.
I couldn't figure out why 7. Somebody told me he had a dog, that the dog's name was 7. I don't know if that's accurate. I heard
No,
that,
it's his good counsel number. It's his high school
Oh,
number.
is that what it is? Oh, okay.
Yeah. He wore
sure.
7 good counsel.
Yeah, again, I kind of wish he had not done it that way, but it is what it is with him.
Look, this isn't a big deal to some out there listening. That's fine. Ben is to a certain extent. I am to a certain extent. We understand the team's history and what's important to a longtime passionate fan base that has dwindled, obviously, in recent years. But this is something that I think is a bit of a test for ownership. I think that you do not go to Joe. This is not Joe's decision. You don't put it in the hand. That's unfair to Joe. It was unfair last time. And that's number one. Number two is I think the right decision is to protect it and tell Stefan he's got to get another number. And if he wants 14, I mean, come on. Antonio Williams has never taken an NFL snap. He can wear 18, and Stefan can wear 14. Or
Right.
Stefan
Plus,
can pay for 14. Or 1 or whatever else he wants to wear. All right, I got to run. Thanks.
See ya.
Ben Standing, everybody. Do you guys want to weigh in on this? 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Stefan Diggs, social media, says, you got to help me. You got to get the GOAT, Theismann, to bless me with that number 7. He wants to wear number 7. He's wearing 18 right now. By the way, I think 18 looks good. I think single-digit numbers look better on Diggs personally, but 14 was his number in Minnesota and Buffalo. This should not be put back on Joe. And I don't think they'll be, I don't think they'll miss the mark on that. That was an absolute disgraceful thing done by our owner for a player who had never taken a snap in the NFL because he was his player. He picked him in the first round. Sorry, Dwayne. All due respect. Joe's a legend in this franchise. He was our first Super Bowl winning quarterback. He was the MVP in 1983. This is what we call in our organization a protected number. You're going to have to find something else and make the best out of that number. There are reasons why Diggs picked 1 and 8 and 7 in other organizations, I'm sure, as well. I haven't gone back and looked at the list, but perhaps he was told he couldn't wear 7 in the other organizations. I'll look that up. I should have done that before. But phone lines are open for this, actually. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Should the franchise give Stefan Diggs what he wants, which is Joe Theismann's number 7? Phone lines open. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. So, Stephon Diggs wants to wear Joe Theismann's number. Are you okay with that? Yes or no? 301-230-0980. On social media over the weekend, he said, y'all got to help me get the GOAT, Theismann, to bless me with that 7. And he's wearing 18 now in training camp. 7's the one. Look, let me just be really clear on this. Number one, I'm thrilled that Stephon Diggs got signed by this team, and I'm excited about what he can do for this team. I think there's a huge opportunity. I think he can still play. I think he's an absolute game day badass, and I think he's going to help the team win this year. I do. At the same time, there is some preservation of team history that, is the responsibility of fans and even people in media, and most importantly, by ownership. The first thing that cannot happen is this cannot be on Joe. All right, that's what Snyder did. He put it on Joe with Dwayne Haskins, and Joe publicly was too nice and said, sure. He talked to Dwayne about it. Actually, I think tried to steer Dwayne away from 7 to try to make a number his own, and Dwayne wanted it, and Joe understood that he would have looked bad if he had said no. He wouldn't look bad to me, but it was a terrible position for that idiot Snyder to put him into. All right, so number one, Josh Harris, Mitch, the people that really know the history of this franchise, you do not let Joe make this decision. It's the franchise's decision. Franchise either says, look, if the jersey's not retired, we're making them all available. But if it is retired, it's obviously not available. And if there's a potential for the jersey to be retired in the future, you could make that case for Joe. Now, I've given you my list a million times of what I think the jerseys that absolutely needed to be retired once they started down this path. 9, 28, 33, 42. 42 has not yet been retired, Charlie Taylor's. I would expect that to be next year. 44, 49, and 81. And then after that, on the short list of, okay, these are debatable for retirement, Joe's would be the first one on the list at 7. I'd certainly have guys like Hamburger and Larry Brown and Ken Houston and Jake and Russ Grimm on that short list as well. For debatable, could go either way. But that would make, in my opinion, Joe's jersey a protected jersey at this point. So I would tell Stephon, sorry, it's not available. It's a protected jersey because there's a possibility at some point, no guarantee, but there's a possibility that jersey could be retired at some point. Pick another number. Now, if he wants 14, Antonio Williams is wearing 14. He's a rookie who's never played. The organization could make that decision. I understand there's not a lot between 0 and 19, which I'm sure Diggs wants to wear something between 0 and 19 and not a jersey number in the 80s, is my guess. But there's not a lot to choose from. It looks like 12, I think, is available. And 18, the one he's wearing right now, is available. But even 19 and 11, McCaffrey and the kicker. I mean, basically everything else in between's been taken, even if it's not by a good player or a player that may not make the team. So there is a chance that more will become available. Marcus Mariota did wear 18 here in 2024. That's because Brian Robinson Jr. was wearing number 8. And then he switched to 8 last year when Brian Robinson Jr. got traded. Yes or no on Diggs being given number 7? 301-230-0980. We'll start with Joe in Springfield. Joe, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, what's going on?
Go ahead, Joe. You're up. Yeah.
Yeah. What's up, Kevin? This is plain and simple. Absolutely not. I mean, number 7, the fact that Snyder even was trying to get Haskins to wear 7 and tell Theismann to wear it, then no. This jersey number is protected. Now, Stephon Diggs, first off, Kevin, I agree with you 100%. The fact that he's been signed here for a 1-year deal, he's opposite Terry. Terry was not able to work well with Debo last year because he was hurt. Terry finally has another receiver that for a 1-2 it's fantastic. So, but Diggs, what are you doing going on social media saying, please persuade Theismann? No. The front office and Theismann Shmuley said no. That
Look,
number is protected.
Stephon Diggs doesn't need to. He doesn't need to know what the answer is. He's been a player in the
Exactly.
league. I know he's from here, but he doesn't need, and maybe he isn't a real astute, sort of team historian. It's not on him. It's on ownership to clearly say, Stefan, we're so glad to have you here. We're so excited and pumped to have you here. Number 7 is a protected jersey. Sorry.
Yes, and Kevin, real quick, speaking of Dan Snyder, did you watch ESPN Jeopardy on Disney Plus? Because there's a category about Dan Snyder firings, and I believe the people who were contestants almost ran the category. I thought that was pretty funny how they made a video.
Well, let me just tell you, the
about
guy
that. It's
the
like-
guy that wrote that category for Jeopardy was a guest on my podcast Friday. Go listen to it because he gave me.
There you go.
I
Yeah, exactly.
I swept that category. It wasn't very hard. It wasn't very hard.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mark.
We've all lived it, Kevin, of course.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Joe. Let's go to Mark and Largo. Mark, number 7 to Diggs or protect it because it belongs to Joe Theismann?
Hell no. Hell no. Joe Theismann, in my opinion, should be in the Hall of Fame. I'm sorry. If Kurt Warner,
I don't think Joe should be in the Hall of Fame.
Theismann should be in the Hall of Fame. Huh?
I don't think Joe should be in the Hall of Fame. I think Joe is Hall of very,
I'll tell you
very
somebody else
good,
who
but not
definitely should be in
Hall
the
of
Hall
Fame.
of Fame. Let me ask you this, Kevin. You think Mark Mosley should be in the Hall of Fame before Adam Vinatieri? I do. He was
I
the
don't.
league MVP.
I know he was.
Oh.
No, I don't think
Kevin.
Mark Mosley's a
Oh,
Hall of
my
Famer.
God. Oh, my God. No. Well, to stay on topic, no. Look, I love Stephon Diggs. I think him coming here. What number did he wear in New England last year anyway? Did
8.
he wear 8 or 9?
8.
Well, he can't get that because Mariota has it, so he can't get
Yes.
that. No. I mean,
This happens in the NFL all the
it's
time.
gonna be-
Guys want numbers. They sometimes pay
Right.
for them, or sometimes they're
understand
told,
it's gonna
no,
go-
that's a retired jersey or a protected jersey. It happens all the time.
yeah, just tell him it's a protected jersey. He can't get it. Go for
Exactly.
14.
Well, 14's the
14's claimed
rookie's
it.
wearing it right now, Antonio Williams. But yes, I'd go to the rookie and say you're going to have to wear number 6 or number 19 or 12. 12's available. You're going to have to wear 12.
I think it's just going to come down to who gets
One or
cut
the other, yeah.
between Van or
That's
Diami.
true, too.
What's Van wearing?
Van's wearing 12,
And Van's wearing 12
and Diami's wearing 6. Yeah.
So between 0 and 19 right now, Max, is the only available number 15.
No, 15 is not available. Sam Hartman wears 15.
Okay.
Sorry, Kev.
Yeah, he's just gonna have to wait to see what comes available at the end of camp. Right. I actually think he looks pretty good in 18.
I think so too.
All right, Mark. Thanks. Appreciate it. Let's go to Jonesy in D.C. Jonesy, 7 to Diggs, yes or no?
Nah, Kevin, it would be hell to the nah. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Joe helped us win our first Super Bowl. Now he might not be Hall of Fame material, just that, third, but he is in the Ring of Fame, right?
Of course.
Yes,
of course.
indeed. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So
And his
yes, he
jersey's
helped
been
us-
protected until Snyder did what he did in 2019.
Well, you talk about the classes, and when you talk about the classes, I get nauseated a lot. So let's not go there with that rascal. Let him just be the nightmare wherever he is. But no, I would be like you. I would point out every other number we have that could be available or that may come available once we start doing cuts. But no, I'm sorry. And I love Stephon Diggs. But no, not for the number. I don't. I like you, but I don't love you for trying to give you the number.
It doesn't matter if it was Jerry Rice coming to this team in his prime. I'm sorry, but this is our history, and it has to be preserved. If we're going to say definitively Joe's jersey's never going to be retired and we don't protect jerseys, that's fine, but it's got to be said and made. The decision's got to be made by ownership. It's not on Joe. This is not on Joe. You cannot put that on him. Thank you, Jonesy. G, go ahead.
Yeah, I hope he's listening. Nah, you don't need 7. And social media or in media coverage, these players gonna say what they want. That's how they came up, especially with the social media. So don't criticize them on that. If they didn't say,
I'm
nothing,
not
you'd be
criticizing
mad.
him.
No, I'm talking about your other caller that said, why would he come out there? Whole time he showed coming out there that he's respectful to even know the history that
That's true.
number 7.
That's true. I don't fault him at all.
And he called And he called Theismann the GOAT, which is that's cap.
Right.
Cause he ain't my GOAT. He ain't Mark the Ripper. He ain't Doug Williams.
Well, he's a better quarterback than Rippon was.
No, not the
Yes, he
not
was.
the 91 year, not the 91 year.
Well, he didn't
And
play
on
in
top of-
91. Yeah, I mean, you're right. Did he have a season? Well, he was an MVP in 83. So Rippon was not the MVP of the 91 season.
I'm talking about Rip. I'm talking about the season Rip had in 91. That's
Well,
one of the
we can
best
do that
seasons
on another day. It sounds like we agree. And I agree with you that I like the fact that he referred to him as a GOAT, that he's reaching out to him via social media. Look, it would have been really great had he just said, hey, I number 7 would be the number I want, but I recognize that's Joe Theismann's number, so I'm looking for another number. But I don't expect these guys to know and be the keepers of the history of the team. That's for ownership. Ownership has to tell Dan Quinn and Adam Peters and all the people that don't have a historical feel for the franchise. 7's a no-go, period. Not going to be worn.
Be a no-go, but at the same time, I say he done wore about 4 different numbers throughout his career because he ain't had the opportunity to wear number 7 at every stop he done had. Superstition, I'm superstitious too, but that went out the window in high school. I was just worried about getting a good fitting uniform. So at this point, I'm saying number 7. Look, Stephon Diggs at number 7 is off limits. Go ahead and pay Luke McCaffrey because he might need a couple dollars. He might not make the roster. So pay him a little bit of money because 7-11 is.
Well, right now,
open.
Stephon can just wait until the cuts are made and to see what's available and go from there. But we're talking about 7, not what he's going to wear. 7 is a no-go, period. It's a no-fly zone. And the ownership should immediately make sure that everybody in the building understands this is not a Joe Theismann decision. This is the owner, and with ownership, we are preserving team history. Joe's is a jersey that could, I don't think it would be a debater, but it could be up for discussion of jerseys that will be eventually retired. So it's an absolute no-go. Yes, we know Dwayne Haskins wore it in 2019 and in 2020, but that was because we had a dummy as an owner before who had no sense of team history. All right, we're done for the day. Back tomorrow. Chris is next.